Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and I would like to welcome you to this program about your Kundalini awakening experiences. My name is Chrism, and tonight we have somewhat of an unusual show on the Facebook. We have been. Oh, I should check my sound here first. Is Mary Jean or Manisha in the chat room? Is this sound coming through? Are you hearing this okay? Yeah, so we always have to do a little bit of a sound check here because BlogTalk doesn't always allow that to come through clearly. And there's some noise here in the studio, so just know that it's not your computer. Uh-oh. Oh, boy. Let's see here. Looks like the sound may not be coming through. So we're just going to continue our test check here and see what's going on with that. And give us a moment here, ladies and gentlemen. We are checking basically through the chat room here to see if the sound is coming through. So it'll just be a moment here. And Mary Jean is typing and Emma is typing. Everybody's typing. And Mary Jean says the sound is good. And I don't know what Emma is saying. Emma says yes. Okay, very good. So I would like to go ahead and let everybody know it's an unusual show. We had an individual on our Facebook group, one of our Facebook groups, and who was basically far more interested in astral travel or out-of-body experiences than he was in the Kundalini. And he threatened to have a bunch of callers come in and kind of do his best to disrupt our radio show today. So we'll see if he's going to make good on that threat. I see a lot of our normal callers. I see Elizabeth and Rosemary and Joey, so that's nice. And of course, Santara. Matter of fact, I'm going to bring Santara on right now. And here we go. Santara, hello.
Hi, Chrism. Hi, everybody. I'm glad the sound is working well for everyone there. Thank you so much in the chat room. It's invaluable, actually, when you type in and let us know, isn't it, Chrism? So thanks,
guys.
Yeah,
it is, because BlogTalk doesn't give us an opportunity to do any kind of sound check beforehand. You're either on or you're
exactly. not. So I'm here in the studio, as we call it. I have the studio open, and I will be monitoring calls. So if anybody wants to, phone in, please feel free to do so. You'll probably get more of a grilling than normal, though. So the number is 347-934-0026. That's 347-934-0026. Looking forward to the show, Chrism. Do you know what it's going to be about today yet?
Absolutely not, as usual. Actually, I do have somewhat of an idea. This has kind of been coming to me all day today, but also a little bit of it last night and yesterday. It's an interesting subject with regards to the Kundalini, and I'm going to post it to you right now. I'm going to approach you with it right now, and it's like, how do you know that the Kundalini within you isn't actually a long-term embedded entity within you? How do you know that the Kundalini Shakti that you have been listening to or taking advice from is in fact that Shakti force of the Kundalini. You know, how do you go about that? And many times an entity can mimic the Kundalini. It can mimic the Kundalini. It can even give you certain levels of phenomena. And with this phenomena, you can be tricked into thinking that is the force of the Kundalini, when in fact it is more of an imposter that is using your understandings of Kundalini against you in a way, in order to manifest itself as a controller of your destiny or of your spiritual destiny. And Mary Jean says, she says, I guess it's the quality of the messages. And I think so. I think that indeed it can be the quality of the messages that can come in. So thank you, Mary Jean. And yet, when a person is just starting out on this path, how would they be able to discern the quality of the messages? What would they do? How do you begin to understand that the Kundalini is indeed working through you? And how are you able to discern that perhaps something else is weighing in at the same time? And why would the Shakti allow that? You see, so this is a very, very, very important question for people to ask themselves. And one of the most important aspects of it, I feel, really is the level of noble qualities that you're being guided to produce in your life. What level of noble quality, kindness, forgiveness, tolerance, honesty, the virtues of grace, the virtues of love and consideration and selfless service for other people, selfless service for the environment. You know, do you stop and shoo the rabbit away from the road or the snake off of the road? What do you do? You know, how are you expressing the noble qualities in your life, and what level of guidance is giving you to do that? What level of guidance within your interior world, your interior environment, is giving you to do that type of work? And what I'm going to suggest is that if you're being given to do that type of work, it doesn't matter if there is an entity that is embedded with you, because it is doing what the Shakti would have you do anyway. But there is also a degree of trust that needs to occur for an individual. So when a person is just starting out on this path, or is even further along on this path, it is very, very, very important for you to touch base with the quality of your behaviors in your life. How are you treating other people? How are you treating yourself? What are you doing to help others? What are you doing to hinder others? You need to begin to ask yourself these questions to get the clarity on whether or not something else is taking control of your life that you would not recognize as the Kundalini. And the Kundalini in me is basically saying, you know, there are many ways to climb the mountain, many paths up the mountain. And some of the paths involve a quality and quantity of entity interaction. And not all entity interaction is going to be hurtful. Not all entity interaction is going to be of a quality that would be corrupting. Most of them will be. Most of them will be. And sometimes it takes a while. You don't get to have that instant clarification of whether or not this is a good thing or this is a bad thing. Sometimes you have to play it out longer. You have to understand that patience is indeed a virtue, but not just patience by itself. Patience and discernment. Look at the fruit of the advice that is being given to you, and look at the quality of that advice, as Mary Jean suggests. It's the quality of the messages. And look at those instructions and see if they fit into the safety protocols. See if they are deserving of levels of grace. See if they are asking you to do things that are of a corrupting nature. And so, when we're looking at whether or not we need a teacher in our lives, I didn't have a teacher in my early Kundalini experience. And so it took me a very, very, very long time to begin to understand even the basic qualities of positive Kundalini behaviorism, and what does it truly mean to surrender, and what does it truly mean to discern, and how do you live with special gifts, and all of these things, because everywhere else around you, everybody is living inside of the illusion of mundane life, and mundane life is really the modus operandi of 99% of the population that don't have the Kundalini. And so those of us that do have the Kundalini, how do we allow ourselves to live in the mundane life, but also to live the divine life, the semi-divine life? And that is truly what the Kundalini is really bringing us towards. And so with or without a teacher, you're going to have to answer these questions for yourself. These are questions that are going to come up to an individual. What level of guidance are you being given? Now, you may have a very, very strong guidance, like Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez has a very, very strong guidance with La Rana. Other people have very, very strong guidances. They've had guidances to become a student of Chrism or to become a student of somebody else. You need to look at that. How is that something that you would immediately trust? And why would you trust that so soon? Why would you trust that? What are the reasons that you would trust that? And some of these things we really have to say you don't get a choice in. Sometimes these levels of trust are forced upon you. You must trust them regardless of how your ego might feel, or regardless about how your family, your friends, or any level of society might feel about what it is you're entering into. Oh my gosh, you have a flesh teacher. In the United States and in Western Europe, Britain, France, they've had it. They've just had it with organized religion, and they, you see these documentaries on European television, and, people are going down to India or somewhere else, and they're losing themselves to a guru. The guru is taking their money, their house, their possessions. They're giving everything to the guru. And I'm going to use an example here. The woman who wrote Daughter of Fire, and I forget what her name is, but she wrote the book Daughter of Fire, which is a good book. I suggest people read it. And it's all about the guru-student relationship. And, she literally did give her guru all of her worldly possessions and left herself at the mercy of that guru, as far as I'm able to understand. And I think Mary Jean, Irina Tweedy, Tweedie, and, she literally did give her possessions to her guru, and she gave herself to the guru in such a way that he could teach her as he saw fit. And he was not an easy man. He was not an easy teacher. And I must admit that I am not either. Although I'm not asking you to give worldly possessions, all your worldly possessions to me. That, even though that would help propel the teachings of Kundalini awakening systems to get put into the universe and get to put into this world and through the various levels of the populations here, even though that would be beneficial for the Shakti in me says, no. What they will be asked to do is they will have to give themselves to you. You see, Shakti doesn't really want even the teacher to have the attachments of possessions or the fixations of greed or the corruption of money. Not in such a way that it places the health and the livelihood and the family and the life of the individual, typically the individual in the Western environments, at risk. It's not about doing that. And of course, yes, indeed, that does show a level of devotion. That shows a level of seriousness. And that is indeed giving the student the availability of not being weighed down by the attachments of possession, or the attachment, possessing things, or the attachments and the possible corrupting force of money. Money can be an extremely corrupting force, as the whole entire mundane world, it would seem, is basically in the pursuit of more money, and that begins to take over the qualities of grace that the Kundalini is giving to a person. It initiates a level of fear of not having enough, and the need or the desire to have more. And if you see yourself in a position where the Kundalini has placed you in a very specific place with a very specific level of instruction, and your mundane mind is screaming against it, saying, this is just a waste of money. I should be, where it's cheaper, or I should be where, I can just read a book, or just look online, or, interact with people online and in order to do this work. Well, this is the corruption of money. This is the corruption of money that is not being, the person is being way too attached to the money and becoming corrupted by it. And so I can understand why the Kundalini would say, no. These people must keep their possessions. They must be able to make their house payment. They must be able to drive their car, get their kids off to school, buy the clothing, buy the food, all of these things, rather than give it all to an ashram, so that the ashram can begin to be responsible for the life and livelihood of the individual. The Kundalini Shakti that comes through me, it does not work that way or in that fashion, certainly not within the Western environments. And so when we're looking at a teacher, a flesh teacher, why are we even looking at that? Oh, you're going to hear some phone ringing here. My apologies. Why are we even looking at that? Well, we're looking at that for levels of discernment. It can be very, very, very difficult for a person to discern, certainly, as they're new into the experience of the Kundalini, or they're just coming into levels of Kundalini where a teacher would be required, certainly with the level of entity involvement that can occur. Entities, for the most part, are not a positive influence until you begin to understand what their purpose is. You see, when you begin to understand what their purpose is, you can find the levels of positivity, even though they're extremely negative most of the time, very corrupting most of the time. But you can see the level of positivity. But in the beginning, that can be very, very difficult to do. Very difficult to discern that. And there is a such thing as a long-term embedded entity that is like a virus, like the AIDS virus. Sometimes people, or mad cow disease, these prions can incubate inside a human being for 15 years or more. A big chunk of the life can be used for the incubation, and entities can also do the same thing. Entities do not die. They don't have a lifespan. They're eternally consciousness. Just like you, when you have a body, you're in limited consciousness, and so you feel that there is a beginning and an end. Well, when you're outside of the limited consciousness, you realize that there is no beginning, there is no end. It is a continuous level of consciousness, a continuous level of information. And so when we're looking at how do we discern the Kundalini from an entity, it can be very, very helpful to have a teacher to help you with that discernment. Because the teacher is not inside of your head to such a degree that it is being, the teacher would be, corrupted by the entity, because the teacher's not going to be corrupted by the entity if they're a teacher of any worth. The teacher's going to look exactly at what I was mentioning earlier, the noble qualities, the behavior, and as Mary Jean mentioned, the quality of the messages that are being given. The teacher is going to look at that and go, hey, you might not want to take that advice, or hey, That is good advice, and that indeed is coming from the Shakti Kundalini. And there is a level of trust that is laced throughout this whole conversation. You must be able to trust what is occurring. If you're constantly, looking over your shoulder to see if there is an entity attaching to you, you're wasting a lot of time that you could be given straight in to your equation, to sharpening the light within you, to expanding your consciousness, to opening yourself to the enlightenment process. And so it's very important for people to understand that a flesh teacher can indeed help you do that. And it's also very important to remember that the Shakti will reveal herself in very, very, very specific ways. Often a person will see the serpents in their dream life, but, as often they will also see spiders. And so, of course, an entity can disguise itself as a spider and say this, or that. But typically they don't. Typically they're going to create levels of fear for you to kill the spider or avoid the spider or kill the serpent or, kill the wolf or the tiger or the puma or the eagle, kill whatever creature is coming to you that is trying to help you into a divine equation. And so when you have a flesh teacher, you can run that past the flesh teacher. And now, of course, as I mentioned earlier, in the Western European and certainly the United States, it is almost forbidden to give yourself to a teacher. And sometimes that is a level that must occur. If you can give yourself to a teacher and that teacher is not abusing you in the ways that say, a corrupt teacher would abuse you, such as they're not taking all your money, or they're not trying to control you in ways that are hurtful, or they're not trying to push you into levels of activity that would damage your equation, or damage your body, or damage your whole spiritual equation. These are the people that you can trust. Male or female, doesn't matter. These are the people that you can trust. And you also have to remember that your Kundalini will give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down on any flesh teacher that is coming to you. And if she isn't giving you that level of thumbs up or thumbs down, that expression of Kundalini in you may also be an entity. Unless, of course, the Kundalini in you wants you to learn a very specific lesson based upon your karma that would allow you to be taken advantage of by a flesh teacher. Maybe you were that flesh teacher in the last life, and you took advantage of people, and so therefore, in this life, you get to be taken advantage of in a very, very similar fashion in order to balance that karma. So it's very important for people to understand that the Kundalini will come to an individual, and she'll come as spider, she'll come as snake, but she'll also come with a level of advice, or a thumbs up or a thumbs down, an acceptance or a non-acceptance of any flesh teacher that you begin to place yourself in availability to. And often she herself, the sacred mother Shakti Kundalini, will suggest a teacher for you. And that has happened many times. This is not unheard of. And so, I think that I'm going to go over here to Elizabeth, and I'm going to ask Elizabeth to speak on this matter. Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
Hi, Chrism. I'm good. How are you?
So, what are you all doing? Fine. Thank you for asking. And what do you think about this subject? What goes through your head? What does Laranja tell you, which is Spanish for spider?
Well,
what does she have to say about this?
I think the key word, like you said, is discernment. And I'm echoing a little bit back to myself. So am I echoing?
No, you're not. You're not echoing on the show here. You're doing fine.
Okay. But that to me is the key word. It's in the discernment. It's in the noble behaviors. It's in the ego refinements. It's in all of that to me, and it's in the truth. And when I was led to a flesh teacher, it was in the truth that teacher and that truth, the same as through my whole life, my Kundalini has always let me know I've had a certain level of discernment on what is truthful and what is not. And it's always extremely clear with my Kundalini what I'm supposed to. I mean, it just couldn't be any more clear. And if it isn't clear enough, then something else comes along to show me what way I'm supposed to be going. And even if it's in, for instance, you think you've found a teacher that you're drawn to, but then everything you do to try to get to that teacher is thwarted. Every path you try to take, everything you try to sign up for, every path you try to take to get to that teacher is blocked. And then you have this other teacher that you go, and all of a sudden all the doors open up and the path opens up and suddenly the appointments are made and the group is found. And that's how it's always been for me. If it's not the way I'm supposed to go, if it's not the teacher for me, then it will be impossible for me to get to that place. And if it's where I'm supposed to be. That's a very, very good point. Yeah.
That's a very, very good point. And I want to really echo that if the teacher is not for you, then she will not allow it to occur. Even though you may see him as the most handsome man in the world or the most beautiful woman in the world, and they're saying all the right words, they're saying all the right things, everything matches up, and they've got like a gazillion people following them. The Shakti Kundalini knows better than we do, and indeed, she would block. She would block every passageway, as you say. Very, very, very astute. Elizabeth, very, very astute.
And then suddenly, with even one word, you'll know that, oh, wow, no, that's not the way. So that's kind of how it's always been for me. And so it's the discernment, and it's the, like you said, leading to noble behaviors. If it's anything other than that, in the way that you're serving other people, animals, even yourself, not serving yourself, but helping in the way you're trying to get help to raise yourself up, it just wouldn't be, I wouldn't be able to discern that if it were something that would be bad for myself, or, all of a sudden I would go, okay, that can't be right,
Exactly. I think, Elizabeth, that is very astute of you, and I want to thank you for that. I'm going to just put you in the blue for a second here and let people. You. Go ahead.
I was just saying thank you.
Yellow. Elizabeth, continue, please.
Oh. I was just saying thank you. But one other thing, you had said, I had told you, because when you were saying to run it by your teacher, I always do run it by you, and just anything that's happening. But it's very helpful to have your teacher be able to say to you, that's very validating, that is your Kundalini, or that doesn't sound right.
That's what happened with Laranya, too. You brought her. Yeah, because you were trying to shake her off your arm, as I recall.
I tried to slam her on the table.
I wouldn't blame you one bit.
It's large and hairy. I don't know.
Thank you, my dear. I'm going to put you in the blue just for a second here. Okay. And I'm going to bring Amelia on. And Amelia, well, what comes to you with regards to this subject?
Well, I was led to a flesh teacher by my Kundalini as well. I mean, I never had a teacher before, and I certainly wasn't looking for a teacher. The Kundalini was very communicative with me in a tactile way in my body. So I would get...
was this before you met the flesh teacher? How did the Kundalini respond to you before you met the flesh teacher, and why did it even encourage you to have one?
Because the Kundalini knew I needed one, because at that time I had moved from a place of knowing that my awakening was a divine event to becoming fearful. I mean, to not being able to discern very clearly at times. I was afraid I was possessed and things like that. And I had gone through a lot of, I mean, it was 2 years before I actually was guided to find you, Chrism. And when the Kundalini had actually stopped, hadn't really, but had withdrawn, appeared to withdraw from me for a little while. And when she came back and began to communicate with me, the very first thing that happened was that I found you and your teachings when she began to infuse me and move within my body again. And so what happened for me was, as soon as I read your very first teaching, I knew it was truth. And I had heart infusions, and I just knew that which was within me was guiding me to listen to that. And I went in and I read more, and every single time I would get a heart infusion. And that is something that has always, that's like a yes, that's a thumbs up from the Kundalini, and it has been that way with me always. And it's interesting that you spoke about entities, because, you know,
like
there was a period.
A long-term embedded entity type thing?
Well, there was a time when I had two particular, we call them phases of entities. And then, you know, the entities came disguised as you a couple of times, because, you know, and that was quite. They were there to corrupt my relationship with my teacher, and therefore corrupt my relationship with my Kundalini, because in my process, the physical flesh teacher that the Kundalini has given me, which is you, is crucial to how I go forward into my process. And she communicates that with me all the time, Chrism, so that it is intrinsic in how I am surrendered to the Kundalini as well. But embedded entity, yeah. There's within me, I know that there is this there's this dark male entity that has come, isn't with me in the way that I know an entity is with others, or isn't as expressive, but definitely has been with me all my life and comes at times and really stirs it up. And I know that entity. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So I think that's an event.
And this is, you bring up something very, very true. I think that you can be Kundalini activated or awakened, and an entity can still be embedded in you. As a matter of fact, they will go out of their way to try to get that way with you. And in some cases, the Kundalini will allow that occur to do what? To teach you and to keep the pressure on you to practice those noble behaviors. Because it's very, very easy for us to slip in to our ego expressions and want to drive the fastest car, or have certain levels of ego expression, and we really need to put the kibosh on that. And I know not everybody knows what the kibosh means, but put a stop to that. And sometimes having an embedded entity that will really encourage you to do those things can be a great level of reverse teaching. And I've seen this occur to many, many, many people, and it does work as long as they have a good idea of what they must do. Give service to the populations, the sleeping and the awakened populations. Have the expression of love, on their, not only on their sleeve, but in their radiance. Have that level of forgiveness, have that level of gratitude and tolerance. And as a person practices these qualities, they become incorruptible. But that entity will still be there, trying to corrupt them all the time. And you can just use that entity as a light in the darkness towards continuous expression of the noble quality. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for that, Santara, and I want to
actually, could I say something else?
Sure, of course.
Some time ago, back in my process, you were mentioning earlier about, is it an entity? Is it my ego? What's the thing that's going on? And sometime back in my process, I made a decision really that I wasn't going to spend a lot of time wasting time and energy wondering if these negative thoughts and these compulsions, let's say, were entity or ego intrusions, because really what they were, whatever the source was, they were corruption intrusions. And so I made the decision that entities weren't going to get special treatment, that when these negative compulsions or negative things were testing my surrender, that I would immediately begin, this mantra of devotion and surrender that I have been given from you for my Kundalini, and I would position myself then to go into deeper acceptance of whatever the Kundalini was doing with me. And so in a way, I think we can spend a lot of time being over concerned or trying to differentiate, is it entity, is it ego, when really is our response to all corruption is the same. It's to express the noble behaviors, to do the safeties, to do as you were saying. So that's just something that I found has really helped me along on my path.
Excellent. Could not agree more. And I'm going to put you into the blue, and I'm going to bring it down to Brooke here. And Brooke, how is this conversation affecting you in your process?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just sitting here thinking while you all are all speaking. I think it gets tricky when Shakti begins, or your Kundalini begins to push you into areas that seemingly break the cultural norm or societal programming. That's when it gets tough, because what's noble, and what's your definition of noble, and what's your definition of what's acceptable and what's right and what isn't? And then Kundalini could be pushing you and moving you into these areas, asking you to expand your understanding and your consciousness.
Noble behaviors would be, the behaviors that are, shall we say, the reverse of hatred or anger or fear or attachment or, want of gain, fear of loss. These would be the opposite qualities that would be considered to be the noble qualities.
Right, but I think people, and I know for myself, can sometimes confuse noble with what is right and with what is acceptable based on
within the mundane
and our programming, based on our programming of what society deems acceptable and what isn't, and that kind of thing. And when you're working in the Kundalini, with the Kundalini, a lot of times what you're going to be asked to do is just not going to make sense on paper, or it's not going to make sense in some of those ways. I'm not saying it's going to be destructive.
Within that context, how do you find the ability to trust?
I think it's been tricky. You have to just surrender to the trust. And I think with me, there's an overarching compelling or pushing me in the direction, even though if I write it all out and I start to analyze it, it doesn't make any sense. And my ego might come in and try and say, no, this doesn't feel right. Or then an entity might attach onto that and make a big thing about it. You know what I'm saying, Chrism? So
yes, absolutely.
I think what you have to do is push through that and, really trust that the compulsion that you're feeling is the internal guidance. If it's not coming through on, clarity, if it's not giving you, a waking vision or a dream or, something like that, sometimes you're not going to get anything because she wants you to develop the trust.
That's right. It goes back to that saying that you can't know the answers and develop trust and faith at the same time.
Yeah.
When you're developing trust and faith, you don't get to know the answers. And so very, very, very astute observations, Brooke. And I'm going to put you here in the blue, and I want to thank you for that input. And I'm going to come up over here to our flying Mother Superior. Hi, Rosemary.
Hi.
What are your reflections on this topic today?
Well, I have not been aware of being misguided. I'm not saying that it hasn't happened, but certainly not for anything that's really clear or major or big. But I know the importance of the devotion to the teacher, and I know that it's
now you came, Rosemary, forgive me for interrupting, but you came from an environment where giving devotion to a flesh teacher was forbidden. And you were inside of this environment for 25 years. I mean, the best that you could do would be a wooden cross or some sort of stone ceramic level of artwork. And did you feel that you were missing that, or how did that settle with you when your Kundalini guided you to do these things?
Well, let me go back to very simple how I got here into your community. Was reading an article in the Edge magazine and saying, okay, I mean, I was blindly guided. I was not rah, rah, rah. This is what I've been looking for forever. I arranged my schedule to be in the seminar, and I stayed connected with you. And I say to people, all those were just wise decisions that I made. They had to be in trust because I didn't have anything from my background, as you said. Knowing what I know now, I would have expected a lot of fireworks or some external sign, but there wasn't, and I just trusted, and I continued to trust you, and that's 5 years ago. And
that's interesting.
I know.
You were basically faced with a silence of guidance, a silence of intuition, a chasm of nothingness, and you just kind of had to jump off the edge of that cliff and hope for the best. Sounds like. And
there was nobody. I never heard the word. I heard the word once before I saw that article, and I know I didn't really get it, but it was. I think if I say what is there in my background is some level, just recognizing all of this was what I was being led to believe was possible in my religious community, in my religious practice. And it wasn't, and it isn't.
What made you take that leap, Mary? What made you take that leap into the dark, into the unknown?
Just a willingness. It was. I would say it was even unconscious. It was Kundalini just guiding me, and I didn't argue. I didn't have, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what to expect, and I just kept moving along. And it wasn't even a seminar, flashing lights and fireworks or anything.
Right. Well, thank you, Rosemary. Thank you very much for your input with that. Now,
Thank
I just
you.
want to say that. Oh, sorry. I never know how fast that button's going to take effect. Thank you very much, Rosemary, for that. And thank you. I want to thank all the callers who have given their opinion on this. And I want to say that if any of the callers want to say more, if they, like Elizabeth or anybody who has spoken up, or anybody who hasn't spoken up would like to say more, push yourself into the yellow zone, I guess, if they can do that. I'm not sure if they can do that, Santara. But if you can, just go ahead and put yourself into the yellow zone there, which has got a couple of people heads there.
No, actually, they don't get to see the studio, you see, Chrism, but they can press the number one. They can press number 1, and I'll see the question mark pop up, and I will put them on straight away.
Excellent. Thank you, Santara. So really, this what we're getting here with levels of clarity. And I want to say one thing right off the bat. I'm not really fishing for students. I'm not fishing for students because I have enough. Okay, and I don't really have the millions of followers. It's just that, I'm one person. I only have so much time in the day, and without a vehicle and stuff like that, I'm having to rely on others for transportation, and so it takes me away from the house and the ashram quite a bit. Although I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, I just received a part in the mail, and hopefully that will get one of my vehicles going. But so I'm not really fishing for students here. What I'm really trying to get to the point of here with this conversation, what the Shakti wants me to talk about is how do you trust that the Kundalini within you is one, the actual Kundalini, and two, that the flesh teacher that you're being pushed towards following guidance is in actuality the real deal, someone who can be trusted. And if you look at Irina Tweedy's account in the Daughter of Fire, the guy was fairly passive aggressive and from a mundane standpoint would not have been treating her very well. And yet from a Kundalini standpoint was patience, was teaching her tolerance, was teaching her forgiveness. Some very, very, very solid golden qualities were being given to this woman. And eventually she wrote this book and she's become very, very famous because of the success of the book. And so it's very, very interesting to see the fruits of her process, because at the beginning of her process, it was very difficult for her. She was in an abusive teaching relationship from a Western mundane standpoint. And, the people that work with me, it's the same kind of a deal. I'll say, oh, you can't do this, or, oh, you can't do that. And, from a mundane standpoint, it looks very, very, very wrong. It looks absolutely wrong. Totally wrong. And if I were in the mundane world and I was seeing, Centaur or Elizabeth or, Brooke or Rosemary or Joey or anybody, Cole, Manisha, Lori, Quana, any of these folks, Emma, I would say, oh, stay away from that guy. Oh, my God. Just forget about the beard, But when you come at it from a Kundalini perspective, you begin to see that okay, this is what you're being guided to go into. It is not always an easy school, and one of the hardest parts of this school is knowing who and what to trust. And it goes back to the statement, that from Laranya, with Elizabeth. I think Elizabeth just found this out on her own, is that if the Kundalini does not want you in a specific place with a specific teacher, guess where you're not going to be? Kundalini will not allow it. As Elizabeth mentioned, you will be blocked every way you can be blocked. And if you force the issue, it's just going to get really gnarly hard for you. It's like sometimes the Kundalini will not want us to have a certain relationship, but we won't know any better. We won't say, oh, God, the Kundalini will be saying, don't be with that woman, or don't be with that man. Don't do this, don't do that. Or don't take that job. That job is not good for you. That job is going to hurt you. But because you're so financially strapped, you take the job anyway. And, oh, my God, you might earn a few bucks in the short term, but the damage done in the long term can be quite debilitating. It's the same kind of deal. When the Kundalini says don't do that, you just don't do that. And if you try to do it, and she corrects you and corrects you and corrects you, and that you still do it, it can be a devastating mistake to follow your own ego in that type of a scenario. And so it can be very, very positive to have a flesh teacher that the Kundalini qualifies for you first. Now with Rosemary, Rosemary is basically, a Catholic nun, Mother Superior, going through all of the 25 or so years doing this type of heavy Catholic work. And yet, all of a sudden she gets guided to stop, and gosh knows where that guidance. I mean, you and I know that it was the Kundalini, but she didn't know at the time. And she takes on this whole other life, and then that life ends, and she takes on this increasingly spiritual life. And yet she's not being given vocal guidance. She's not being given visions, as she said. She's not being given fireworks or any of these things. She's just kind of being, I would have to say, very lightly, slightly guided towards certain things. The seminar, the Kundalini, the word Kundalini, all these things. These little tiny hints. And, the divine within her knew her quality of surrender was strong, and that once she found a level of guidance that she felt fit what was being given to her, that she would indeed just jump right off the cliff and those wings would come out immediately. And they did. And she's doing that. She's flying right now. Kundalini provides the wings that keep us aloft in these processes. And sometimes those wings are made out of specific teachers. For me, I had no idea. I was not happy with having this snake-like thing that my spine had changed into. I was very not happy with that at all. I was very unhappy with that. And but I just struggled to maintain my calm. I struggled to maintain my level of constant discernment, which I was constantly discerning how I could get out of this, how I could make this stop, how, doing everything I could do to resist it, not knowing at the time that was the wrong move. Totally the opposite move to take. And so, of course, my process was very painful and lasted a long time. But I needed to have that process so I could help others not make those choices. And this is what has allowed me to make the teachings, or to do the teachings that I'm given right now from my Kundalini. And it's very important for people to understand that not all flesh teachers are out to get you. Many of them are out to get you. You must listen to your Kundalini. Your Kundalini will come to you in a dream. She'll come to you in a dream, or she'll just not allow you to, as Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez mentioned, she'll just not allow you to come into the presence of that individual or come into the teachings of that individual. And so you will, you'll move with where she wants you to go. And I know some of you listening right now have been guided to have this level of teaching, from the source that comes through me. And so it's important for you to really open yourself to these teachings. You have not been blocked. You have not been blocked. And you have been allowed to in many ways to come, thousands of miles and light years away from other types of philosophies or religions or spirituality or New Age techniques and belief systems to come into this level of teaching, this level of core truth. This is an anatomy of core truths that your Kundalini is allowing you to partake of. And I really, really want to suggest that you open your heart wide, open your mind wide, and let your consciousness expand. Expand beyond the beyond. There is no reason for you to continue to live in the darkness of where you have come from when Kundalini right now is exposing so much light into your system, so much light into your equation. And it's very important for you to be astute and discerning, yes, but also to trust. If you haven't been blocked just from listening to this radio show, and I'm talking to everybody here, I'm talking to the people in the chat room, I'm talking to the people that have called in, and I'm talking to you people who are accessing this in the archives. I'm talking to you too. And it's very important for you to understand that you must trust the Kundalini. And like Rosemary, sometimes you have to take a step off the cliff in the dark and fall before you know you can fly. Okay, it's very important. And now let's come back to the other aspect of this topic today, which is the embedded entity. You can have an embedded entity inside you, and it can give you corrupting thoughts. It can attack you directly. You can get attacked every morning when you get up. When you come back into the body from your astral dreaming and your astral journeying at night, which everybody does. They just don't remember. They don't do it consciously. It's an automatic feature of being a flesh human. When you come back and you settle back into the body, boom, that entity can start attacking you immediately. And you must trust. It will give you every mistake that teacher has ever made. It will actually fabricate mistakes that teacher has actually made. But it knows. Some of these entities are very, 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 very smart. And they know that when you base the lie in truth, that lie has so much more power to it. And so when you wake up in that morning and you're being deluged with negativity or corrupting thoughts about the process that your Kundalini is in right now, and oh my gosh, this terrible teacher and whatnot, you need to begin to trust even stronger. And you need to reverse those thoughts. You do the crucible of reversal upon every lie that is being propelled to you, and even the lies that are based in truth, because you may be able to remember this teacher doing a certain thing that you would have perceived as wrong at the time, and you know the entity is saying, well, don't you remember what he did that day? 2 years ago, don't you remember what he said? Oh my gosh, how could you have forgotten? And just really laying on the corruption as thick as possible. You may be given a momentary lapse in trust. Cole's laughing. You may be, and it's understandable, because this is a voice that's coming inside your head in the same way, if not the same way, in a very similar fashion that the Kundalini comes through. Although I feel the Kundalini in me comes through my heart more often, and I've had entities come in, I've had them try to corrupt me, and I've had all that stuff happen. And they're usually telepathic. They're usually a straight up telepathic communication in your head, whereas the Kundalini starts in your heart and then comes to your head sometimes. She's far more based in loving maternalism than a coercive corruption. Okay. And I want to go ahead and get Elizabeth's take on some of this stuff. And maybe if Lorania has something that she would like to say in regards to this as well. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Well, I keep thinking of this, so I'm going to just tell you about this. But last night, and someone had put on the group something about, Kunalini animals, and somehow bats came up, and I was saying, oh, I love bats, and sure, bat, Shakti could present as a bat, that, but I've never had that happen. I've had snakes, I've had, obviously, spiders, but anyhow, so last night I had a really lucid dream, and in the dream, there was a large black bat, and it was flying, and it attached to another person's head in front of me, and then it was feeling something out of its mouth all around her head and her hair, but it was a mapping. I can't even explain. It was like a 3D mapping, and you could see where there was like these dots on her head, and then all this stuff about neurotransmitters and this and that. Anyways, then the bat flew towards me, and it attached itself to the left side of my head. And it did the same thing, and it shot this net of, and it was neurotransmitters, and it was saying something about, this is radar, this is how I find you, this is how I know where you are, or something like that. And so I was thinking, and I was kind of conscious in the dream at that point, but I said to myself, and I got this distinct feeling, like you said, in my heart. And I thought, oh, that's Aranya. That's a Kunalini. And I was thinking, why is she a bat? And I said, you're not a bat, to her. And she turned into a spider, still attached in the same place to my head. And then she changed back to the bat, and she laughed, and she said, it's still me. That's still me. And she kept changing from the bat to the spider, spider to the bat, and she was attached to my head. And then, and then I thought, okay, well, that's nice, and I still had this great feeling in my heart. And then when I woke up this morning, I just have felt really great all day and just had this really loving feeling and just very conscious memory and tactile. I can still feel in the left side of my head, like where she was kind of attached. I don't know if it was to my hair or to my actual head, but yeah. And so I don't know why she wanted me to tell you that, but that was what just kept coming to me when you were talking about.
I read the same post. I read the same post as you did, and I didn't respond to it. But the first thing that came to me was dolphins and bats have the same level of communication. The dolphins do it underwater, and the bats do it in the air. And there is nothing on this world that is not Shakti. And that's the message I think Laranya was given to you, was that she is all life forms. There is nothing that is not Shakti. And the very fact that the dolphins use sonar and the bats use radar, well, that's just the difference between water and air.
Aha.
And they're extremely accurate. And the whole idea of the neural transmitters is that we have the ability to have telepathy. We do not have frontal lobe development that allows us to have sonar or radar, but we could develop that was needed, and the Shakti would develop that within the individual. So, for instance, if a person became blind, well, they would be able to develop a level of sonar-based or radar-based positioning and visual positioning within their expression. And this is not taught to blind people because science doesn't support the ability for the human to develop that level of expression. But that's what I got, when I read that post as well.
Ah, okay.
We have the skill set.
It's interesting, and that came all through the dream because that's what it kept talking about: radar and neurotransmitters and all of that. And I just kept thinking, okay, maybe I'll understand this when I wake up because.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you. That's good. That's good. And I'm going to put you in the blue here. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Okay.
And that was one of the posts yesterday on the Facebook, one of the big Facebook groups, Kundalini Awakening ! But I'm going to move it slightly back because this is important. And actually, I see a segue. A segue is opening from what Elizabeth just told us, and what Laranya was saying is that there is a level of discernment that goes beyond figuring. It is a telepathic extension of yourself, almost like a filament comes off of yourself and goes to that source of information, whether it's an entity or whether it's a teacher, whatever it is, and the Kundalini will allow you to attach that filament to that teacher or to that source of information, and from that taste of that consciousness, you'll be given levels of clarity about the truth or the lie that person is representing for you. And we have more skills than science allows us to understand. And one of these skill sets, I think, is what is being discussed right now. Not only do the bats have this or the dolphins have this, but we have the capacity to develop very, very specific frequency of interaction with regards to the discernment of truth that the Kundalini gives us, so that we can discern the truth, so that we can do what Rosemary did and just pretty much step off that cliff with total trust and confidence and allowing ourselves to fall so that we may learn how to fly. So thank you, Elizabeth and Naranya, for that. And it really gives us a new angle of approach. And now, I have not discussed this with Elizabeth or anybody else before. As I said before, I didn't even answer that post at all. But I made the connection, or she made the connection within me between dolphins and bats, and how the visual cortex it can be used in different ways. The visual cortex in the human being can be used in different ways. And so, for instance, when you're envisioning, when you're creating a vision in your mind, say, a lot of these New Age people, say, well, okay, I want you to envision that red sports car, because everybody wants a red sports car, right? And so you envision the red sports car, and you look at the tan leather seats and the dash, and how it looks and how it feels, how it smells, blah blah blah, so that you can develop it, right? Well, that form of envisioning also has the ability to actually operate within the real world. So, for instance, one of the sacred skills that I was given early on was split viewing, where I could view the spiritual and the physical in a separate nature, but I could also overlap them. Now, if for some reason I went blind, then I would just overlap the physical and the spiritual by virtue of the envisioning manipulation of the visual cortex within the human being. And this would be aided and abetted by the Shakti Kundalini. You don't realize how unlimited you are in the physical form, especially those of you that are in the Kundalini. Kundalini amplifies you beyond the beyond. You are way more powerful than you're allowed to understand. And that there's a reason for that too, because you don't want to give a 2-year-old access to the F-18 fighter jet just yet. They need to learn how to control their ego first. And this is where the entities come in. The entities come in and they begin to praise the ego and to use the ego as a way of corruption, a worm of corruption inside your system. And sometimes these entities will stay for a very, very long time inside of a person in order to continuously drive them towards the corruption, whereas the Kundalini will basically drive them towards purification. And I will always, always, always suggest that you follow the purification route, even though that can be the more painful route. Which brings us to another aspect of the question. If it hurts, do you do it? If it doesn't feel good, do you go after it? In the mundane world, in the New Age, certainly New Age circles, you hear this term: follow your bliss, follow your pleasure, do what makes you feel good about yourself, do what feels right for you. Well, the Kundalini doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you're gonna fall and it's gonna hurt. Sometimes just the infusion of the body itself will give you levels of pain that are unheard of. And you'll go into the ER and you'll go, oh God, my left arm, it's just so painful. Oh my God, I can't even tie my shoes. Oh, what am I going to do? Doctor, heal me. And they'll look at your arm and maybe they'll scan it with some machinery, or, maybe they'll look at it, they'll test it, they'll, X-ray it, and they'll give you to a physical therapist, and he'll say, oh, does it hurt here? Oh, does it hurt there? Oh, they'll go through all these things. And they won't find a darn thing. And they'll say, well, Mr. Chrism, I'm afraid that you have phantom pain. Here, take this drug. We'll fix your head. We'll fix your mind so that your mind doesn't feel the pain, and therefore it won't exist for you anymore. And then they'll make you sign a document saying healed and released. well, let me tell you, the Kundalini can bring you levels of phantom pain that is actually the the energy coming into the body, the infusion of the body. And when that level of voltage or level of energy comes into the body, it forcibly expands the cells. It forcibly expands them, and that includes the neural complex cells. The neural cells will also get expanded, and just like the 2-year-old, as we've said so many times on this program, just as those teeth are coming in and they're forcing their way through the gum, so does the energy and the current, the powerful current of the Kundalini, forcing itself through the flesh of the person and expanding that flesh. Well, that will also cause levels of pain. Where's the bliss in that? Sometimes you don't get to follow your bliss. Sometimes you've never even had bliss to follow. Now, I'm going to switch it on over here to Miss Santara. And do you have any announcements that you'd like to make?
I do indeed, Chrism. I'll begin with telling people where to go to make a donation if they'd like to contribute and donate to the work that Chrism does to support that work. You can go to www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com and you will find a donate button there, and all donations are really gratefully received, and donations is very necessary in order for this work to continue. So if you're in a position to donate and if you are receiving and you're able to do that, indeed it would be gratefully appreciated. That is www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And the other announcement I'd like to make is for the seminar in Berlin. It's exactly a month from today, and the seminar will be starting in Berlin September the 3rd, September the 4th. And Manisha is organizing it. And you can get information if you go to any of the Facebook groups. You will see that there has been an event created there called Kundalini Awakening Berlin, and you can get the contact there and how to go about booking your place. There is actually an early bird price, and I think that is finishing tomorrow or the next day. So if you're living, remember Europe is quite a small place, really. Most of us can get to Berlin 2 hours on a plane. 2.5 hours on a plane. That is such a short journey. And Chrism comes to Europe very little. He's not here that often. So it's actually an amazing opportunity to come and meet with Chrism and to meet with a teacher who has himself got the Kundalini awakened and teaches from the Kundalini within him. And if you're listening to this, and if you're, reading the groups, and if you're reading his teachings, and if they're resonating with you, I would suggest that is a communication from that which is within you, inviting you to put yourself into a position of meeting Chrism, if that is at all possible for you. And sometimes when we decide, that's really something I want to do, well, it's a little bit like what people were speaking about earlier. Emotion begins, and we find that we can actually get there. The first thing to do is to decide, yes, that is something I would really like to do for me and my process. So I would encourage any of you who are in Europe, in the UK, France, any of the countries around Germany, which is really fairly central to all parts of Europe, to seriously consider going or coming and get in touch with Manisha. And it's September 3rd, September 4th, and as well as meeting Chrism, you will meet other Kundalini people. And that's a wonderful privilege, because for most of us, there's very few of us are able to meet other Kundalini people, and there is nothing like it. I mean, I've met Kundalini people at seminars, and it's such a blessing. I've met people in Peru, in other places that I have been, blessed to be able to go to, and I guarantee you, if you come, there are those in the chat room now, like Cole. I've met Cole. I've met so many wonderful people from around the world. So Europeans, Kundalini European people, I'm saying to you, this might not happen again for another while, so please do consider coming. I better be quiet now and let it at that. Go to the groups and contact Manisha and see. I'm after inviting some friends. If you're a friend with me on Facebook as well, I've just created an event to Kundalini Awakening Berlin, and you'll be receiving an invite. So get in touch with Manisha, get in touch with me, talk to us about how to get there, and we'll help in any way that we possibly can. And that's it, Chrism. Those are my announcements.
Thank you for those announcements. And I would like to say that you can contact Manisha at postio.de, and that's MANEESHA at Postio, and that's P as in Paul, OST as in Tom, EO.D as in dog E. So Manisha at postio.de, and that's her email. And feel free to get in contact with her right now. Manisha is in the chat room. She's listening to this conversation, and I want to just extend my thanks to Manisha and Sotantar and any and all of the other people that are helping this level of Kundalini information come to Germany. This is not common information, ladies and gentlemen. This is not common. I've already had people commenting in Germany that they have been looking for this type of information all their lives, and this is very important to bring to the population. So if you do, if you know that you're having this and you want to have more of it, or you want to have a lot more information about it, then I strongly suggest that you contact Manisha, MANEESHA at postio.de. And thank you for listening to this announcement about the seminar. And thank you, Manisha, Sotantar, and everybody, and Santara, and everybody who is working hard to bring this seminar into fruition in the beautiful country of Germany. And I would like to go ahead and ask you if you have any questions from the various groups that you might have scanned before the program. Santara.
Yes, Chrism, I have a few questions that were sent in. I'll read those first. The first one is good moral character essential for activation?
Yes, absolutely. And yet, no. No, you can be an absolute idiot, and the activation will occur. Speaking for myself, you could be an absolute asshole. I don't know how you say that in German, Manisha. You have to help me out there. You can be a very, very corrupt individual, and then the activation takes place, and you turn around so fast and so furious, you become that saint with prison tattoos. Okay. Once the Kundalini activates in you, you turn around very fast and very sharp, and you begin to live that non-corrupted life. You begin to really change your ways, change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you interact with your environment, your social environment, and also the physical environment. So it is essential, but it is really only essential after the activation takes place. Not to say that if you're looking at an activation and you're a good person, you're kind, considerate, tolerant, patient, loving, helpful individual, that the activation won't come. You don't have to be an idiot or an asshole to do that. Matter of fact, most people that activate naturally with the Kundalini are very nice people, very kind and considerate and loving people. It would be the people that activate from shall we say, a low moral compass would be in the minority. The people that activate from a high moral compass would be in the majority in that sense. And so that's why I said yes at first. But it's true that, you could be living a very, very, very difficult life morally, stealing or hurting other people or whatever. And then the Shakti comes to you and she just changes it all around. She changes the way you think. She changes you from the inside out. That can also happen. Over.
Thank you. Unless one forgives all, there is no Kundalini awakening, ?
No.
Unless one forgives all, there is no, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the forgiveness is a continuous action. It's like a river. There's a river of forgiveness that flows through each of us. It's one of the rivers that feed into the ocean of love within our hearts. And the river of forgiveness is a constant flow. Now, how often you dip into that river is definitely going to be up to the individual, and this is something that the Kundalini will guide you towards, that you dip into that river of forgiveness and you drink deeply of those waters so that you can give that forgiveness into the population and to yourself as well. And it's not always the easiest thing to do. If you've been abused, violently abused or sexually abused early on in your life, how do you forgive those perpetrators of that abuse? That is not an easy question. Not easy at all. But the river is there, and the river will wash. It will wash you to the degree that you are able to do that. But you've got to reach. You've got to stick your toe in that river. You've got to partake of that river. And as Phil Karuba says, it's the hardest part sometimes to do. It's very difficult. And as I've said in other programs, I'll repeat today, is that, when we're kids, when we're children, we are living much of our existence from our karma. Our karma has selected our parents, and the karma has, especially a child that's going to activate the Kundalini later on in life, that karma has to be taken care of. And sometimes that abuse can be part of that karma. Not all the time. Sometimes those parents are making karma. But often within an early stage karmic balancing for a child, abuse is part of the deal. I know that I was abused as a kid. I had some pretty strong levels of abuse that were just so painful to me and so perplexing to me. It's like, why the heck is this happening to me? Why am I being singled out for this? And it was definitely a singled out. I was singled out for specific levels of abuse from various stepfathers. And it was not easy to take. And it took me until I was like, into my 30s to be able to forgive those individuals and to face them, to come face to face with them and thank them for the levels of teaching that I received from them, however it came. The abuse can be a very, very, very difficult area, but it is not impossible, and the Kundalini will help you go there. And I suggest everybody who is listening to this that has received levels of abuse in their early childhood that you begin to explore that river of forgiveness within you. You did everything right if you were able to come into Kundalini and to have that level of forgiveness, that constant level of forgiveness. Constant level of forgiveness is what it takes. Because when you're a kid, you're being trained, you're being ingrained with very specific qualities of how it is to live your life, and those qualities of the right and the wrong and the hard and the easy and the happy and the sad. These qualities stay with us for the rest of our lives. And as the Kundalini comes in and begins her changes and begins her infusion and begins to expand our consciousness and expand our love, it is very important for us to to swim in that level of forgiveness so that we no longer are persecuted by the karma, and two, by the levels of corruption that we were exposed to as children. We must forgive. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. Next question. Is effort, self-motivated effort on the Kundalini path self-defeating because it leads to ego inflation rather than ego transcendence? Sorry, that was badly. Transcendence.
Ask the question again.
Is effort, self-motivated effort on the Kundalini path self-defeating because it leads to ego inflation rather than ego transcendence?
It only leads to ego inflation if the person allows it. If you know, so for instance, you have a teacher. We'll say, you have a teacher, and the teacher is saying, okay, yeah, you can have the Kundalini. Here's what you got to do. And they show you the safety protocols. Well, you can practice those safety protocols with full ego engagement. You can practice them, and you can set up attachments to it, and you can set up goals, and you can set up, all the different kinds of things that a sleeping person does in order to achieve a certain thing. But once the activation occurs, you also must be open to releasing those attachments, changing those behaviors, allowing yourself to become changed by virtue of the voice within, the divine within, and allowing that divine within to take over specific levels of control of your life. And of course, that's never, ever easy for anybody to do. That's always the hardest part of the Kundalini awakening equation, is to give control of your life and your destiny of your life to the Kundalini, to this sometimes unseen force within you. But that is what you must do. That is what Rosemary did when she walked off the edge of that cliff, and she fell into the arms of grace. All of us, to some degree, will have to fall into the arms of grace. And you can fall into the arms of grace as a pre-planned event by the ego. And that ego will still transcend, and that ego will still be transformed into a higher mental functioning self as you are transformed into the Kundalini exalted self. So yes, you can go into this with strict levels of intention and overt levels of egoic thinking, but don't think that that's going to last. Once you reach that mountaintop, well, then that mountaintop begins to change you. That mountaintop begins to transform you into that which you have been seeking, except you don't realize what it is you've been seeking because you've been working at it through the ego. And the ego is one of the first things to be changed. And once again, you got to remember, Chrism does not teach killing the ego. The ego can be seen as our inner 7-year-old or inner 8-year-old, who wants that candy bar, wants it now, and is going to scream and cry and have a tantrum until, he gets that candy bar. The ego of the individual can want the Kundalini candy bar. And so as that ego, teams up with the mental functioning self, and they both begin to go after that Kundalini candy bar, well, once that candy bar is reached and consumed, well, that Kundalini is coming from within now. It is activated from within. And that ego is going to change. And that mental functioning self is going to change. And that change is going to deliver a level of surrender and control over that ego and mental functioning self, to the degree that the ego will be transformed into a higher mental functioning self, and the higher mental functioning self will be transformed into the Kundalini exalted self. And so it can work that way, definitely. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. Next question. These are from the groups now. Is a spinal sweep mandatory for the initial Kundalini awakening and the lighting up of all the chakras top to bottom, or the reverse if it's to be so? And is there a spinal sweep that one could have without being aware at all that one actually had it?
If you don't know what a spinal sweep is, and you have the spinal sweep, you would know that it's a spinal sweep. You would know that it's a tremendous event that has just occurred to you. Tremendous to the degree that you do not have words to describe it. So, yeah, you can have a spinal sweep without knowing that you're having a spinal sweep. The words spinal sweep were given to me by my Kundalini. Divine merging is another way to describe a spinal sweep, the total merging with divinity. Your conscious and unconscious and superego and alter ego, all the psychological profiles that fit a human being merge into the divine complex. And that complex changes everything permanently. Permanently. There is no coming back from that. Is it necessary? It is necessary to the degree that the person's karma dictates that it's necessary. So, for instance, the spinal sweep will have different periods it will last for different periods of time for each individual. And time inside the divine continuum is not the same as time that we're spent here with. Time inside 1 second can be 1,000 years. 3 minutes can be, 3,000 years. I mean, time inside the divine continuum is not at all like time is experienced here. And so you have to understand that. You have to make a temporal adjustment in how you understand aspects of time to be. That is crucial. And so as you come out of the divine continuum, there's levels of change and purification that are indelible. I mean, you have been tattooed with divinity and inside and out, and you have been changed. And not only have you been changed, but you have been changed to a degree that you can grow further into the divine. I explored this early on in my process. I wanted to see if I could egotistically initiate a second spinal sweep. And I did, and it worked. And it's part of our Shaktipat prayer that we do, the prayer to the goddess. And this has the ability to initiate a spinal sweep if you do it with enough intensity. Okay. It's very, very important. Spinal sweeps are, to merge with the divine. Now, the other thing is sometimes they happen for instance, for myself, speaking for myself, when my spinal sweep first occurred, I felt the chakras light up, but I felt them meld together. It's like there were no longer individual chakras. There was this one continuous force of energy coming up the spine and taking me into divinity, and I felt them weld themselves to each other. Or I use the word plating. It's like they snap together, like magnetic plates would snap together, and they snap together so rapid, so fast, so furious. And I was taken into the heavenly field so fast and so furiously that I was stunned. I couldn't, I didn't know what was occurring. And I, it felt like an internal earthquake. I thought it was an external earthquake. When I came out of the heavenly field, I looked around to see if the lights were swinging, because I live here in California, and we have earthquakes here. And I thought, my ego mind was ready to blame it all on an earthquake. But there was no earthquake. And so with regards to you have to have a spinal sweep. Well, you'll have a spinal sweep, and it can be slow or fast. Once again, time does not register within the divine continuum the same way that time is registered in the physical continuum. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. After my huge energetic release today, I started feeling an unbearable pain in my head. It almost feels as if someone is stabbing me in my brain. Is this normal, and does this damage the brain?
No, it doesn't damage the brain. It is normal. I would like to know what initiated that. What did he call it, or they call it?
Energetic release. I'm trying to remember.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was trying to remember, did I take the whole question? I think I did. Maybe I didn't. Maybe he had attended something. I'm not sure.
So if it's an energetic release, that sounds a bit more of an ego-based scenario where people are out, being little spiritual butterflies, and they're tasting this technique and they're tasting that technique, and if they have an activation going already, and it's too much, there's too much energy being pushed into the crown. Well, the Kundalini will respond like hot knives going through the crown, and it hurts. It hurts bad, and you learn to stop when that occurs. I mean, it may not be on the level of a severe migraine, but it will be getting there. And when I have people that are doing the safeties or doing any of the practices that I give them as a teacher, if they start telling me they got hot knives going into their head, I tell them to stop everything. You've reached your energetic maximum for the moment. Stop everything for the next couple of days, and let's see how your head starts to feel. And then, we'll slowly begin to reinitiate the practices. It does not damage the crown unless you continue to push. Okay. And even then, Kundalini can heal the crown if she wants to. Sometimes she wants the crown to remain damaged so the person understands that they don't want to mess with these areas. They don't want to, finger paint on the crown chakra. And I mean that literally, finger paint on the crown chakra. And in other words, you don't teach the kindergartner to treat the crown chakra like it's just a piece of throwaway finger paint. You take those fingers off of the crown chakra. You let them know that, hey, this might hurt, and this should be taken care of, and this should be, really, really loved and treasured. And you don't put too much energy into it by virtue of the ego. You allow the energy to come into it by virtue of the Kundalini, and she will give you that pain as a way of letting you know the energetic maximum has been achieved. Over.
Thank you. Too much pressure on third eye. It's continuous throughout the day, either walking or waking or sleeping. Breath has almost disappeared while meditating, and breathing is very slow. My head starts shaking and the body starts vibrating every now and then. The pressure is not disappearing. How do I cope with my situation? I'm getting disbalanced and feel like falling down while walking. I can feel pain in my ears and jaw. Guide me, please.
Well, I asked them a question. Did you do a third eye opening exercise in order to, artificially open that third eye? It sounds to me like this person did do that. And if indeed that is a fact, then they need to live with that pain for a while. You do not artificially, with ego intent, try to open the ajna with it. That is a huge mistake. And the Kundalini would not guide that person to do that, but their ego would. And the society that they're inside of would. Say it's a New Age society. I know a lot of the people in India are really working. Oh, I want to, Master, will you let me open my third eye? Please show me how to open my third eye. No, I would say absolutely not, unless you want to end up like this questioner. That's what happens when you have a premature ajna activation by virtue of the ego. That's what occurs. That's exactly what occurs. And I strongly feel that is what that individual doing. Whether they'll admit it, I don't know. But I did ask the question, did you do third eye opening practices or exercise? And if they did, this is the result that needs to be given. This person needs to suffer for a little bit of time until divinity either steps in and says, okay, or, closes it back up, or, they are able to pull the Kundalini in an activated format up into the chakras without just trying for one chakra at a time. And this is so common these days. People want to take a short path. They think that, oh gosh, if I open the third eye, then I'm going to have an edge over people. I'm going to have powers, which is what they all want to have. They want to have that power. They want to have telepathy. They want to have telekinesis. They want to have psychokinesis. They want to have all these different powers. But they don't realize, that powers come with responsibility. Responsibility not only to outside society and environment, but also to inside environment. You need to understand that, yes, you are a vessel of the divine, but you need to earn these powers in a way that is not strictly of the ego. Over.
So, Chrism, to continue with that for a moment, that person, let's assume that's the case, and they're now getting that lesson or that teaching. What should they do? Should they stop meditating?
Yes,
Would that
they should
be
stop
something
doing it. They should stop all spiritual practice.
All
They
spiritual
should stop
practice.
praying.
Okay.
They should stop meditating. They should really walk barefoot on the earth. They should have sex. They should eat a lot. They should do everything that many spiritual programs counsel them not to do in order to have spiritual experiences. I would say eat. I would say work really hard to the point that the body is exhausted. Exercise really, really hard. Make sure that you have sex, and make sure that if you're a man that you spill the seed, and if you're a woman that you have the orgasm. Do everything that you can do to anchor yourself in the mundane again, and stop any and all kind of spiritual pursuit for a while. Over. And they can also do, you could ground. All of these things that I just said are grounding techniques anyway, but grounding would be the best thing for them, and a definite stop of any kind of a practice or an engagement to open the third eye needs to be immediately discontinued.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question. I'm struggling with control. We are guided to surrender, yet be at our best. We are supposed to abide by rules. The rules make me feel controlled, which doesn't feel good. So what then? Isn't every moment perfect for us by our higher self to learn?
Well, for our higher self, for sure. But how often are we operating strictly from our higher self? Does the ego ever come into this equation? Well, of course it does. And so we surrender the control that the ego has over us, and we give that control to the divine within. And in our case, we give that control of ourselves to our Shakti Kundalini. Okay? We don't allow ourselves to take control with our ego. That's very important for people to understand. We don't allow the ego to have control. We give our control to the Kundalini. We give it, implicitly to the Kundalini. And so there are rules, and most of the rules surround the the fingers of the ego that reach into every part of the human expression, the physical part, the mental part, the emotional part, the psychological part, and the spiritual part. And the rules are for egoic control, not to control the Kundalini, but to control how we would want or fixate or fabricate or attach ourselves to very specific levels of interaction with the Kundalini by virtue of the ego. That's what the control is about. It has nothing really to do with the higher self. And the person that is asking that question is asking that from a control egoistic vector, whether they know it or not. They're complaining. That makes me feel uncomfortable. That makes me feel uncomfortable. And what part of the person is feeling uncomfortable, Amelia?
The ego, Chrism.
Exactly.
Tell me, the person continues. So I'm going to read it. You know, I'm supposed to eat right, meditate right, love right, be chemical free, be this, do that. When is it just, you know, being enough? When does the doing stop? And when can I trust that it just all is? When can bad and good and safe and unsafe not be?
When you give complete control to the Kundalini, that's when you'll know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Now, is having paranoia and being on a fight or flight mode common in a Kundalini experience?
Exactly. That's when the adrenals are being infused with the Kundalini and they're working overtime, and that adrenaline goes into the bloodstream and gives an artificial release of the fight or flight hormone, which increases the heartbeat, shortens the breath, and gets you ready to fight or flee from nothing. And then if you're drinking caffeine, in addition to that, it really gets hard, and a person can move into strong levels of acute paranoia. And so in the safeties, we're counseling people not to drink caffeine or anything that has caffeine in it, and to eat the watermelon and to stay hydrated and to keep your electrolytes really, really healthy. It's very important that a person does this so that they don't fall into the vortex of depression and fear and oppressive. I'm losing the word here. Paranoia that a person can fall into if they don't know what not to do. Over.
Thank you. What is the meaning when sound comes in the neck during meditation?
What kind of sound?
I don't know. They don't specify.
Well,
and it's in the neck. So I don't know if it's a sound they're making or something they're hearing. So I suppose you can't answer that then.
Yeah, skip that one.
Yeah, okay. I experienced sharp pains in the heart area and persistent sore throat throughout the awakening. Why would this be? Is it blockages being removed or is it something else?
Blockages can come that way. If you have a lot of grudges, if you hold your anger inside you, that can manifest as severe heart pain, like being stabbed. And if you're not communicating your feelings, if you're really, blocking yourself in the fifth chakra, well, that can come through as a sore throat. Definitely. Over.
Okay, and this final one is in the other group. It's about an issue a woman is having with nails. She has an issue with her nails for months. She thought she got it in a nail parlor, and she took medicine, and it became better, but it's back again recently. She put up a photograph of it. I don't know if you've seen it, but she's asking, would that be purely medical or could it be Kundalini related? And what advice could you give her for that?
I haven't seen the picture, but what I'm getting is that she needs to do a very strong detox. She needs to do I'm getting the feeling that it's some sort of a fungus, but if she does a detox, that will begin to, and she needs to take a strong 1,000 milligram vitamin C complex daily in the morning with food. Coming through that, looking at that. She also needs to take foot baths, hot as she can stand it, with baking soda to draw out some of the issue. And she needs to do this consistently. Also a B100 complex, 100 complex. Solar Ray, I like the Solar Ray products. And I don't work for them, I don't get kickbacks from them, but I do purchase them myself, and I do take them myself. And if she has the availability of getting that, I would have her do that. Looking again, another thing that I'm being shown is a black light. She needs to go put her feet or nails into a black light.
Her hands, actually. Her hands.
Her hand.
Yeah.
She needs to put her hand under a black light and leave that. Let the black light also work its way into the nails. Looking at that. Stand by. Yeah. Well, I'm getting all kinds of interesting advice here. Put it under a black light. Also, take a moment and soak it in organic apple cider vinegar. Soak those nails in that. Pour it into a pan and put the whole hand into it. Take the jewelry off. So the black light, the organic apple cider vinegar, the soaking the hand in hot water with baking soda, and I think that's what I mentioned, those three things, right?
Yeah.
Over.
Right. Okay, thank you, Chrism. That's it. We're finished with the questions.
Good. I want to go ahead and once again, I would love to meet people in Germany. So please, if you can at all make it and you want to make it, come to the seminar in Germany. It is in Berlin. It is September 3rd and 4th. It is a 2-day seminar. Contact Manisha, and her contact is MANEESHA at Postio, which is P as in Paul, O as in Oscar, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, E as in Edward, O as in Oscar, .D as in dog, E as in Edgar, and I would love to meet you there. Please give her the email, and I would like to thank everybody who I'm going to give. I want Elizabeth. Elizabeth, does Lorania have any last words that she would like to give to the people?
No, not at this time, but just thank you.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Lorania, for your input into the program tonight. And I'm going to put you into the blue, and then with Rosemary. Rosemary, do you have any last words that you would like to give to people here?
Yes, I am thinking, follow that inner guidance. It doesn't have to be so strong. Just know it and follow it, and all will unfold as designed. I am so committed to us having this information. Really, why I work here in the cities on the seminars, because I taught young people for one reason, and I also was in church leadership, and I didn't have this. And honestly, it's still not there. And it's something we have this right to, and the desire in ourselves.
Well, you're definitely on the path, though, Rosemary. Definitely on the path.
I'm grateful.
Maybe you can hook up. Maybe you can hook up with Manisha and help her with this if she's open to that kind of assistance. You have the email. Give her an email.
My email address is rosemaryg@usinternet.com. rosemaryg@usinternet.com.
Oh,
I would love.
Thank you, Rosemary, and blessings to you. And then over to my wonderful co-host, Santara. Do you have any last words you'd like to say to everybody?
No, Chrism, I haven't. Just again say thank you to everybody in the chat room and everybody who phoned in and everyone who's listening for joining us. And we will see you again at the same time next week. Thank you.
Well, I would like to say and thank you, Santara. Thank you for asking the questions, collecting the questions, and for having this show exist at all. It's all because of you, my dear. So many thanks to you. And I would like to give the information of where people can find some more of this information free. And that would be on the YouTube network. It is at Chrism.Kundalini, Kundalini. And I would like to let you know that they're on the Yahoo network. It's Kundalini Awakening Systems 1 at yahoogroups.com. We are also on the Google Plus network, at Kundalini Awakening ! We are also on the Facebook network at Kundalini Awakening Systems 2, Kundalini Awakening Systems 3, Kundalini People, Kundalini Journeys, Kundalini Awakening ! And we also have public and private healing groups, Kundalini Healing Public and Kundalini Healing Private. And if there is any questions, you can reach me at KFIRE for all. That's KFIREFORALL at yahoo.com. KFIRE for all at yahoo.com. And I'll be happy to give you any assistance that my source will give to you. I'd like to thank everybody in the chat room who has graciously given us their feedback, Cole and Mary and Manisha and the guests and Emma, Atlanta Seeker. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for all the callers. Thank you for Elizabeth and Rosemary and Santara and Joey and Brooke. And I'd like to thank all of those who are viewing us and listening to us in the archives. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your visit. And may you be blessed always and forever. And I will end this the way I began it. Here we go.